promoting yourself. The next talk is, let me unlock my phone first, is from Stefano Francello, and it's PBX on a non-specialized distro. So, yeah, give applause.
No? Okay. Hi to everyone. I'm Stefano and I'm a NethServer developer. I'm here to talk to you about how and why we package the PBX inside NethServer. NethServer is a multi-purpose distribution, and the issue that we encountered when packaging it. First of all, the software we choose for the PBX was Asterisk and FreePBX. They are both quite old, but they fit very well in the environment that is in our user case. And Asterisk is very flexible, and it fit well in an enterprise environment, starting from small enterprises to the big carrier and providers. And that's why probably the main, a lot of choice that you do when you build Asterisk is about that, and that's why its main distribution method is the source code. It's hard to find updated packages of Asterisk. FreePBX is the web interface for Asterisk. It's a PHP web interface, and it has a MySQL database or a SQLite database in some case, but it's not 100% support, so we choose to use Maria. And when you configure FreePBX, it stores its configuration into the database, and when you apply configuration, it writes Asterisk configuration file, then reload them. It's written in PHP, it's modular, it's also very extendable, and it's easy to write your modules. Okay, when we choose to package the PBX, we start taking a look from the sysadmin point of view on why sysadmin should choose to have the PBX on a multi-purpose distros instead of having a specialized one. There are a few specialized distros, and the pro of having a specialized distro are that they, of course, are easy to install, and they are cutting edge. They always have the last updates from Asterisk and FreePBX modules. They have commercial modules, and this can be very important because also you have paid support. In the case of the Sangoma distro, they give paid support only if you have your distro, and because of this, usually are installed in an enterprise environment, usually having paid support available is mandatory. The cons of having a specialized distro is that sometimes they are bleeding edge. You can't always trust the updates, and you can't use your server for something else too. Sometimes in an enterprise environment it can be useful to have more application on the same server to reduce the hardware to maintain and to monitor. No, you have to do manual configuration when you use this kind of distro for everything, and maybe your distro has a nice guy with, I don't know, user-friendly interface, but in this case, you have to manually configure everything that is not configured inside the FreePBX. But you can't manually configure everything if you want, because some FreePBX modules write their configuration and mess with your configuration. From a distribution point of view, the reasons why we choose to package PBX is that, first of all, having more user. Having more user is part of this virtuous circle that helps to make a better distro. Second, we wanted to provide the PBX for our current user and as enterprise to our customers. And also it's important for us to have the PBX on a multipurpose server for the reason I said before. And it's also easier as enterprise to give support because when you have a support team, you have to train the team only on another application instead of a whole new system. There are also the reasons that depends mainly on why you are building a distribution, but I think that we can summarize that in there is still a big interest in this kind of application in the enterprise environment. Okay, the distro I'm talking about is NethServer. I don't know if you already hear it. Who know NethServer? Who already know NethServer? Okay. NethServer is a CentOS-based distribution, and unlike other CentOS-based distribution, it doesn't rebuild the packages from CentOS, but add a layer over those packages to help the configuration. And this layer of configuration has another layer that is a web guy that helps the admin to have a user-friendly interface to configure everything. That's an overview of the NethServer architecture, but it's quite complex, and I'm not going to talk about it today. If you are interested, there are a lot of documentation on the internet. Okay, let's now see what are the issues that you encounter when you try to package those applications, and also the issues that you encounter when you try to package similar application. Okay, first of all, FreePBX require HTTPD to run as asterisk user, and this is quite simple to solve. The problem, yes, is that we need to have two instances of HTTPD because we don't want the normal instance of HTTPD to run as asterisk user. So we create another instance by creating another configuration and creating another systemd or whatever service that use this configuration. The second problem here is the PHP version. We use the upstream CentOS FreePBX PHP version, sorry, and in our case is CentOS 7 and is 5.4. FreePBX 14 needs 5.6, but we don't want to install for everyone the 5.6 because it can break other applications. So we installed PHP from SGL, and since we already use another HTTPD instance, we configure this instance to use PHP FPM from the newer version of PHP. This has a drawback. That means that the two versions of PHP runs at the same time in the system. This has the drawback that is when you want to run a shell command that uses the newer version of PHP, maybe for using the FreePBX console, you need to load before the environment. But there is also an advantage that is very easy for us to migrate to another version of PHP when it's required. It will be very easy for us to migrate to PHP 7 because only FreePBX in the system will use this version of PHP. Okay, another issue that we encountered is that it's not easy to find updated package for asterisk, FreePBX, and their dependencies. So when you start to build a new package, you can't find, it's not easy for you to find other packages to copy from. We were lucky here because we can take Sangoma Source RPM. Is a very good starting point because they are very up to date. It's not very easy to take them because the repositories aren't browsable, but if you want to start now to do this, you will probably take a look to our GitHub where we have all our source RPM and we already took the best that we can from other packages. Okay, that's the worst part. FreePBX, like many other applications, use an installation script for putting file around, change permission, and configure database, start and stop service. And this is very bad because you can't use a normal RPM to put file around and to check permissions. The solution, we don't have a solution here because you have two options. The option one is to take the installation script and use it inside your package, but it's ugly because you are using an installation script that fails, you don't have GPG check and integrity check and everything. The other option is to let the RPM do the right thing and put file in the right places, but we choose the one because the second was too time consuming and it took us too far from the vanilla FreePBX and would be hard to keep pace with update. Basically, it could mean to fork and we didn't want to. Okay, another issue is how to take care of backup. NethServer has its own backup, and FreePBX also has backup modules, but we didn't want to use it because we don't want to configure another backup on the module when we have already configured the system-wide one. So we take all the databases, and when we want to restore it, we just install FreePBX as a new installation, then throw away its database and install the backup one. Okay, another issue is that Asterisk has a few kernel modules that are used for timing and for internal hardware. And when you use those modules, if there is a kernel update that doesn't depend on you, but in our case, we use upstream kernel, so we can know when a kernel will be updated. So substantially, the update is broken if you don't rebuild the kernel modules. The solution here we adopted was to use weak updates. That is a nice feature of CentOS that allow you to install the kernel modules in another kernel with the same major version. It's not the same solution that FreePBX used in their distro because they build the kernel too. If you are building the kernel or if you use, I don't know, maybe some Jenkins, you probably would like to build the kernel modules every time. Okay, FreePBX has the capability, a model to configure the WebRTC extension, but they are still also quite difficult to use. So we added Janus Gateway, that is a WebRTC to SIP gateway. Is a very cool software, and if you are interested, there is a talk about it tomorrow in the real-time track. And that's all. If you want to talk about NethServer, there is a development room in this building at 16 p.m. And if you want to contact me for talking about PBX or whatever, just use my contact. I will be very glad to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Stefano. Does anyone have any question for him? We still have 1 more minute left. Question?
I guess just one comment. Mostly, Daddy, it still breaks on every major release of CentOS, on every point release. But you mostly don't need it. If for timing, you really don't need it on recent Asterisk, and unless you use MeetMe instead of Confbridge.
Okay, yes, you're right. That is not mandatory for timing. You also have other option. In my experience, they don't always work well when you need very strict timing, like for fax.
So, yeah, I think that's it. A round of applause. And
Thank you.